A bunch of new Halo Infinite news has just released for the campaign of the game thanks to exclusive stories from IGN and Game Informer. And there will be no story spoilers here, so don't worry about that. But I'm also going to go over some of the changes that are coming to Halo Infinite from the feedback that 343 got from the final flight of the game, the multiplayer BTB and arena flight that happened. And I know this information came out a couple of days ago. I apologize for taking so long to get a video out on it, but I do have a good reason, I swear. This came in the mail today. I was not expecting this anytime soon, and yes, of course I'll be doing an unboxing video on it, but I've been basically preparing my PC for this upgrade and making a custom-made PC case for Halo Infinite with Chief colors. I've been trying to do this on my own. I'm kind of happy with how it's turned out so far, but I had to basically take my PC apart and transfer everything to a temporary case while I spray painted my primary case, and this could take up to a couple of weeks to do. So long story short, all the components are in the temporary case. This is why I was able to make this video, so thank you guys for your patience. Let's try to get to 5,000 subs before the launch of Halo Infinite. Everybody stay tuned for the unboxing video of the GPU, along with a showcase of how my PC paint job came out. I will also be doing a special giveaway on the channel, so stay tuned for that. For reaching 1,000 followers on Twitter, you give me a follow at ThePatmanGaming. So there's your channel update. Without further ado, let's get started on the video. So let's start out with the campaign news from IGN and Game Informer, just in case you guys have already heard the details on the changes from the technical preview or flight. The first thing that really struck me was from IGN's article. They said the biggest surprise they had coming out of their few hours of Halo Infinite campaign wasn't the delightful exploration or even the incredibly fun gunplay paired with Infinite's new equipment. Instead, it actually came down to the characters, and more specifically the Master Chief and how he reacts to certain things, and even things as subtle as his movement in the game, and how that foreshadows that Halo Infinite is meant to be a very impactful story. Now, it was once again confirmed that Halo Infinite isn't an open world game per se, but Zeta Halo is broken up into large island chunks with chasms of space that simply cannot be crossed, at least not at the beginning. IGN confirmed that land masses can be connected by bridges, and Chief can eventually call in things like the Wasp to fly wherever you want after these areas have been unlocked. It seems that most of the big story elements happen in large, foreboding structures that could be viewed as something like dungeons in the game. Those offer a more classic Halo experience, and they said that the main story missions were fairly lengthy as well. They said that each major area took anywhere from 30 minutes to 1 hour to clear out and complete. There was also more information shared on the FOBs, or forward operating bases. We know that the UNSC and the Master Chief lost a war with the Banished for the control of the ring, and that's kind of where Halo Infinite picks up, trying to regain control of Zeta Halo so that it doesn't fall in the hands of the Banished. And part of that narrative is recapturing these FOBs. Now, these do seem to be optional and not tied to the main story, but it is highly recommended you go after these because they present a lot of goodies for the players to take advantage of. Once you regain control of an FOB, the tactical map will update with relevant nearby points of interest. In addition to that, the FOB becomes a fast travel point and a resupply point where you could fill up on ammo and requisition additional supplies, troops, and even vehicles, much like Halo 5's Warzone mode, but in the campaign. And in order to go on ahead and get more powerful items to requisition, you have to get something called Valor. And think of this as something like rec points. Now, before you freak out, no, you're not spending real life money to get these requisitions. You could obtain Valor by completing primary and secondary objectives. Another optional upgrade path is through the Spartan cores. So if you find these, you could use them to upgrade one of the 5 available pieces of equipment in Halo Infinite's campaign. Those being the grapple shot, shield core, threat sensor, drop wall, and thruster. And you will not start your adventure with all the equipment either. You'll find these new tools to play with at specific events in the story. And unlike weapons, equipment is a permanent piece of the Master Chief's arsenal and can be changed at any time. And something quite exciting for Halo Infinite's campaign is the amount of collectibles that are going to be available. Things like audio logs for the UNSC and the Banished will flesh out certain story beats and provide more information on some of the beloved characters that we don't know much about to this point for Halo Infinite. It is confirmed that armor for multiplayer is another collectible that can be found on Zeta Halo, which is also extremely exciting. And of course, skulls are making their return as a collectible in Halo Infinite. Those are definitely going to be a little bit harder to find, but the scan tool that is mapped to the D-pad will go on ahead and highlight any kind of collectibles that are in your immediate vicinity. Now, IGN did acknowledge that there's some pretty awesome Easter eggs in the campaign. Of course, they're not going to spoil it for us, so that is really good to hear, because I've been looking forward to seeing what kind of Easter eggs will be in Halo Infinite, since this game seems like such a love letter and passion project from 343, more so than any kind of Halo 343 has created before. IGN also did say that the Grunt and Marine dialogue offered a lot of comedic relief, so it's good to see the Grunts having that sort of comedic presence in Halo again. And as far as enemy encounters go, there is plenty of variety, not to mention the boss battles that we'll touch on in a little bit. Just normal encounters with Grunts and Jackals and Elites and Brutes all have different aspects to them. So certain Grunts may have more armor than other Grunts. Some Jackals may have a new role called a Jackal Skirmisher, and the Brutes and Elites will have all sorts of different combinations of armor and weapons. And of course, we've seen the Skimmers, the new race of enemies and hunters, making a return as well, but there may be some other surprises in there, one of those being the boss encounters in the game that seem to be a big step up for the series. These high value targets allow for another fun diversion in the combat loop for Halo Infinite, and upon defeating one of these bosses, you can acquire one of their unique weapons that are not available anywhere else in the game. And say you completely clear out an area of its boss and all of his troops, well, then that weapon that the boss was carrying will be available in your forward operating base, so that way you could carry it into whatever battles that you choose. But that's not the only way to get weapon variants in Halo Infinite's campaign. Supposedly, IGN member found a secret room in the mountainside guarded by a group of small banished. Once they vanquished all those banished, they were rewarded with rare and unique weapons, one of which was a variant of the Cinder Shot called the Backdraft Cinder Shot. There's also ammo crates for each kind of ammo type in Halo Infinite's campaign, one being plasma, then kinetic, then shock, then power, and of course hardlight. These ammo stations are not abundant, but they definitely help in important areas with sparse weapon drops. We also finally got to see the Stalker rifle in action. To me, it is best described as something between the carbine and the DMR. It is a Covenant weapon, of course, much slower shooting than a carbine. That's why I kind of compare it more to a DMR, because it is very powerful, especially at range. Now let's go over some of the changes coming to the full game from the feedback that 343 received from the Infinite flights. Starting with the HUD, these features won't make it at launch, but they are keeping them on their list of post-launch priorities and hope to fit them in a future season. Auto sprint and additional color controls are both likely to come sooner than something like HUD customization, but those are all on their list of things to do. Now, HUD customization would likely take a sizable overhaul of some of these systems in the game, and all these things may take some time, but HUD customization is definitely looking to take the most time. They said that they agree that the layout of the player's inventory can be improved, and they will address both its size and layout in an upcoming release, and this change will also include persistent visibility into the secondary grenade type for multiplayer gameplay, and new settings to adjust the inventory layout. They also said they noticed that a few people pointed out that muting and ban messaging was not as clear or intuitive as some players may have hoped. They are working with their live and services team to ensure that that information is timely and easy to find, and they will provide more updates when they have them. As far as audio is concerned, the team said the only piece of major feedback was in the Needler Super Combine effect could be a little bit louder. They said they'll take a look at this and see if there's a way for this to stay sounding great, but feel more impactful and rewarding for the player using the Needler. Now here's one of the big ones, progression. They said that they're aware of some of the desired changes for a broader progression system outside of the Battle Pass. After last flight, they have adjusted their daily challenges to be more focused on a per-match play model. The other big issue was making double XP boosts more time efficient. This is something that they agree on, and they're looking at a solution that they could provide at a future date. Now, while they're exploring those new changes, which could be a very large undertaking, they're also looking into faster options, such such as ways to increase how frequently XP is given out via challenges and potentially tying XP boost to matches played rather than time. There's also been a large number of requests for an additional career progression system. They want this too, and it's their team's top priority, but doing it right will take time and it may not come as quickly as many of you would like. As they look to what their team needs to build, adding an entirely new progression system on top of everything else is a lot. Building a progression system with solid design, good implementation, and top tier UX and UI presentation, thorough testing, and time for polish will take a lot of time, and they want to do it right. While that is a ways away, they said please understand that outside of continuing to support the basic needs of each season and finishing up existing work that's already been started, building additional progression systems and improving the areas mentioned are the live team's top priorities. As far as the radar is concerned, they changed it back in the second flight to more of the classic motion tracker properties, and they said they're going to leave it alone for the time being in these social settings, that they're happy with that feedback. However, they did say a lot of BTB players were saying they were thrown off by the size of the radius of the radar, and that will be getting increased from 18 meters to 22 meters in Big Team Battle shortly after launch. Now, flag melee damage was another thing that they've tested extensively in the studio and seen a lot of feedback on, and they've tweaked it quite a bit internally to get it where they landed today. With its current melee tuning, the flag takes 2 hits to kill. A lot of people want it to be 1 hit like the old Halos. However, its melee swings are faster than a player who is holding a weapon. Yes, it is satisfying to get a 1-hit melee when you are the carrier, said 343, but they believe that this tuning allows for more interesting battles between both players. And in regards to the flag visibility rules, they'll continue to watch that one when the game is live to see if there are any specific instances that are confusing people. They did say it is worth noting that Halo Infinite has different spotted rules than Halo 5, so they also want to make sure that people have time to get more familiar with those kinds of differences in the new system, and 343 will be keeping an eye on player feedback in that department. And it turns out that pushing the flag with a vehicle was a bug that has been fixed and will not be in the final game. There are some changes coming to BTB 2.0. They said some players raised concerns around stronger vehicles arriving later, and in some cases too late during their matches. However, 343 is happy where this is right now because this leads to bigger moments in a match. They also said it's worth mentioning that there were vehicles such as the Chopper and the Wraith that weren't available in the flight that will help further flesh out this vehicle story in each match. They said to please be sure to let them know what we think of this match progression when the game launches. Another note is that Jeff Steitzer's voice will return in Big Team Battle, which is great news. They said they weren't able to get this change in for launch, but they're looking forward to bringing his voice back in all its glory as soon as possible. As far as optimizations go, there are plenty coming to both the PC and console versions of Halo Infinite at launch that we did not see in the flight, but 343 did say that they are aware of a lot of players who asked for an exclusive full screen mode in the PC version of Halo Infinite, and this is because players believe that this would give them a significant performance boost. But because of some fundamental changes to Windows 10, this is not applicable to DirectX 12 games, and Infinite is DirectX 12 only. They said that if exclusive full screen would have increased performance over their current options, they would have prioritized it higher on their list and pursued it. However, there still are other use cases for a full screen mode, such as accessibility and just personal preference, and they do want to give players the choice. It will not be something that comes immediately post-launch, but they will be investigating how to expose this as an option in the future. Now, something that could be directly tied to the performance of certain PCs in the Halo Infinite flight was the aiming and how weird it felt for some people, including myself. Well, 343 said on top of the performance improvements that should really help on all kinds of different PCs and components, they are making some changes to the aiming in the game. They did say when they started to work on Halo Infinite, they did want aiming to require more skill, but they also didn't want it to feel bad for anyone. There was a strong focus on raising the skill ceiling without removing the fun, natural aiming feel that you expect from a Halo game. Now, because of the feedback from the flight, they are taking a measured approach, especially knowing that the performance optimizations will also improve the feel of the aiming in the game. They've made minor changes to the cone angle of aim assist on select weapons for launch, and to be clear, this is not a change of the strength or stickiness of the aim assist, but it should help make aiming feel more natural. And if you guys want to see the changes, they are on your screen right now for these select weapons. They said another part of confusion and frustration around aiming was also likely stemmed from the removal of the red reticle in online multiplayer on PC. They knew knew this would be controversial, but they did say they trust their team when they say this will cut out another potential cheating vector. They saw quite a few people say, well, just build a better anti-cheat system, which wasn't really the right way to look at it. Building a better anti-cheat system involves taking preventative measures across the entire game, wherever possible, to reduce the ease of creating cheats. This is one of those small steps that contributes to a larger anti-cheat strategy across the entirety of the game. They also said they saw feedback that stated red reticle range was needed to determine effective range on weapons, which, although it is helpful, they say they don't agree that it is a necessity on most weapons. Though in the case of tracking weapons such as the plasma pistol and pulse carbine, or something that locks on like the energy sword, they agree. So the red reticle was enabled on those weapons during the flight, and they will stay enabled during the launch of the game so that you know when those weapons are ready to track or are locked onto their target. As far as player outlines are concerned, they said during the BTB portion of the flight, some players brought up concerns about the range at which IFF outlines kicked in. It didn't seem to be a problem for most, but they wanted to acknowledge that they hear this and they'll monitor it when they launch. As for turning them off entirely, which a lot of players wanted as well, they'd love to provide this option and others down the line, but it is something that they'll need to balance and prioritize with the other work that they have going on. They'll provide more updates on this when they have them. Now finally, let's go over the sandbox, like the weapons, equipment, and vehicles. So for the weapons, they said thanks to our feedback, they'll be looking at some targeted changes to address the plasma pistol and its shortcomings against Spartans. They can't guarantee these changes will make it in at launch, but they are in progress and they will make their way into the game very soon. They also said that Bloom was a split decision in the community. Some people liked it, some people didn't, when we're talking about the VK78 Commando and the MK50 Sidekick. After looking at the data, 343 said both performed well in their intended ranges, but the Commando actually started to do a little too well. The MK50 Sidekick is meant to be a sidearm, not a primary utility weapon, like many expect coming off the heels of Halo 5, and they do believe it's fulfilling its role with its current tunings. However, in the case of the Commando, they reduced the damage on it, so now it requires one more bullet to secure a kill. Given that this can be a pretty large change, they opted to not alter the bloom on this weapon, and they will continue to monitor how it plays when the game launches. Another hot topic within the community was how no-scoping with the S7 sniper was handled, and they said that it's working as intended. All snipers in the Halo series have basically had a range in which no-scoping is viable, and this is no different in Halo Infinite. There is a certain range at which no-scoping will net you a kill right where your reticle is, but once you get out of that range, then that's where it is encouraged to zoom in. Same thing with other precision weapons in the series. They said the community's desire for increased knockback and physics impulses is one that they agree with at the studio. The two areas of focus were grenade explosions to allow for grenade jumping, and the gravity hammer for cool gravity effects and to have a more satisfying smash were two of the main areas of concern. However, player collision will not be coming back for now. They do stand behind that decision, and I actually agree with it. I think the positives of no player collision far outweigh the negative as far as getting to certain spots by jumping on players' heads or teammates' heads. So we'll just have to wait to see how the community reacts to this post-launch. As far as equipment goes, they said that the community did want another buff to the drop wall, even though it got buffed in the second flight to have a lower deploy time, and 343 says that they don't think this is a good idea quite yet. They're going to have to get more data on it, so it's going to stay the same for now. Also, the threat sensor seemed to be in a similar spot, with the community feeling that it was underwhelmed by its effectiveness. However, 343 feels that the threat sensor fits a unique role in the sandbox, and it could be very powerful since information is vital in Halo, and possibly even too powerful if utilized effectively and once meta strategies develop around it. So it seems like no further equipment tuning is needed as of right now. Now, as far as vehicles are concerned, first off, the Ghost, they're looking at ways to either reduce the durability of the vehicle or the protection that it provides the driver. Now, the team is also working on increasing the durability of the Banshee and effectiveness of the Banshee bomb. As far as the Scorpion tank is concerned, they're investigating a way to tighten the turn radius without reducing the turn rate, which should make it feel more intuitive to control. Now, while they do agree with this feedback, they did say that they're focusing right now on closing out the bugs for the launch of the game, so these tuning changes may need to come later down the road, and when they do, of course, your boy Patman here will be covering it in a video for you guys, so make sure you're subscribed. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. I hope to catch you on either a previous video of mine or a future video of mine. Until that time comes, I'm your boy Patman, and I'm out.